Hello, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. And I've got no rhythm at all. I've got no idea. I do these stupid things every time. I've got no idea how they're going to come out, and I'm not going to go back and check. So that's it. That's what you get today. This is my Friday reads for December the 3rd, 2021, going out on Friday, December 3rd, which will be the 5th day of Chanukah. So tonight before Shabbat, we'll be lighting 6 candles. And I hope if you're celebrating Chanukah anywhere around the world that you're having a great week as well. And I'm going to do my Friday reads, hopefully quickly this week. Maybe I can get it under 15 minutes. And it's just to sort of round up. I know we're in December now, but Nonfiction November was the first time that I've really made an effort to align my reading with some of these themes. I'm not good like this. I'm not participating in any buddy reads, because I read one book at a time, and I'm not a good joiner. But this kind of appealed to me. I read nonfiction generally mixed in amongst my fictional reading, and I also read comic books and crime fiction and all those other things as well. If you watch this, you'll appreciate that. But I really decided, for having totally blown through Victober, where I managed to read one Elizabeth Gaskell in the last 2 days of the month, I really tried to commit to Nonfiction November, and I've had a great month. I had a few nonfiction books, some of them which I was putting off, and this was a great time to focus and only read that. So I haven't read any novels this month. I haven't read crime fiction. I did read the odd sort of graphic trade paperback in between non-fiction, just to sort of stay fresh and to keep my stats up. But I've had a great month reading non-fiction, and this kind of wraps it up. I've got 2 here that I finished and one that I'm reading right now, which I'll finish even though it's already December. So I mentioned last time I was reading My Life by Marc Chagall. My relationship with Marc Chagall, I'm not like a massive follower of Chagall's work. Chagall, I first became familiar with Chagall, I think, when I was 16 years old, when I came to Israel on a trip during the summer holidays, and we saw Chagall's stained glass windows is it on the campus of the Hebrew University in Jerusalem? I got that right? It was in Hadassah Hospital, maybe. Wherever it is, it's a big deal. You go into the room and there's 12 scenarios, or representing the 12 tribes, I believe, and it was very impressive. And so Chagall's a familiar name, and if you're familiar with his themes, I've seen some of his paintings exhibited, and we know about the lambs and the Jewish religious imagery, and then the portrayal of Christ the Lamb also in that. And that's Chagall is a Russian Jew straight out of the shtetl in late 19th century Russia. Anyway, this is a fascinating book. This is a Penguin Modern Classic, this sort of lime green thing, originally published in 1922. So this is not. Chagall is still with us, I think, into the born in the 1880s, and he's still alive in the 1970s, maybe. Born in 1887, died in 85. So he was 97 when he died, 98 years old. And this is written in 1922, so he's 35 years old. And he's moved around a little. So he comes from the very Jewish ghetto in Russia, surrounded by Jews, and talks about his early life and the piousness of his family, and the amount of prayers that were going on, and the way people dressed, and Jewish life in Russia. And it's absolutely fascinating at that time. And then his determination to pursue a life of art, and telling his parents that he wants to go study art, and there's no money for a child to go and study art when there are jobs that need to be done in order to bring money into the family. There's no money to be given to someone to go out and study something, but he pursues this life, and his parents, despite their objections, are loving and supportive, and he goes and he studies, and then that takes him further away, and he goes to Paris to produce and study, and he talks about his life there, and the poverty and the need for finding patronage, which is something I think most of us don't think about these days, and I don't know how much it's still a part of a young artist's struggle, but it seemed a very natural thing that if you were somebody who wanted to produce art, you need materials, you need somewhere to live, you need food on the table, and you haven't sold anything, and patrons would come, look at your work, and give you money in order that you could go and produce art, and just for the pleasure of supporting artists, and maybe being given work at the end, which may at some point be worth something. There was no sense in the 20s that one day this is going to be worth $50 million. There's nothing like that, but just being part of this world was something that the moneyed class felt was their responsibility and their duty to support the working artist. That's a fascinating, it's a really sort of insider's view of what that's like. And then what happens when a patron says, okay, yeah, look, here's your money for this month, but I think this is going to be the last month. And like, okay, how's that work? Negotiating that relationship between the artist and the patron, I think is fascinating. Now, this is not a narrative memoir where he talks about these conversations and how they happened and what to do and what he was thinking. This is very much stream of consciousness, odd little vignettes jumping around, sentences that may not scratch that itch if you're looking for a real narrative insight into the artist's life as a young man. But if you're willing to go with that flow of these little snapshots of life in the ghetto, the decision to go and train, the relationship between the training artist and the mentor, growing past what the person who you're paying to teach you can teach you, going further. All of that is in here. He comes back from Paris after many years because he has left his fiancée behind in the village and wants to come back, and that's quite a touching view of, instead of the mercenary artist who will just pursue his art at all costs, we get a picture of Chagall as being a man who is looking for a whole life and not just pursuing something which no one else can understand. So he comes back and he works in Russia and sets up a school, and again, despite the sort of, and I mean this in the nicest way, the airy-fairiness of the writing here, which is kind of seems of a piece with the ethereality of the art. So I think there's a connection there between the writing and Chagall's art. Despite that, what we know about Chagall is that he was tremendously practical, that he always understood that he had to earn money, and setting up a school and setting up, working with the authorities to have money in order to be able to pay all that is going on in the real world. And this book is just on the cusp of Chagall leaving again, I think, and going back to Paris and everything else. So, written in 1922, and we know so much more happened in Chagall's life past that. So, I think as a snapshot of an artist, I think this was thoroughly satisfying as a look at life in the ghetto and Russian life in the turn of the century, the late in the 1890s through to the turn of into the 20th century is super fascinating, as part at an early stage in his life, I think if you wanted a biography of Chagall, you would look at the whole, and it would come after his death. And there are probably good ones out there, and I'm sorry I don't have them off the top of my tongue to name to you. But as a snapshot, I found this really fascinating, and it's a quick read, a breeze. It's under 200 pages, illustrated throughout with Chagall's little illustrations. Bits of art. I guess I don't know if that's a woodcut or what medium these are done in, but really enjoyed that. That is My Life by Marc Chagall. After that, I read Audre Lorde's Your Silence Will Not Protect You. I didn't know anything. Audre or Audrey? We learned. I think I learned in the notes at the beginning that she was born Audrey with a Y, but she started writing her name without the Y. But I don't know if that means she carried on being pronounced Audrey or if it was Audre. I don't know. I always read it before I'd read that note as Audre Lorde. Not someone who was on my radar growing up. So I think I might have heard of Angela Davies and then maybe other Black American women writers who were involved in the struggle, or involved in feminism, the struggle for Black consciousness in the sort of 50s, 60s and 70s. And I don't think Audre Lorde was really on my radar. And I want to say that it might be because it turns out, what I get from this is that she was moving in a much more, she was working in the field of academia, that while she was involved in every step of the way, she was not a frontline protester, she was not a fist-clenching Black Panther, but she was somebody who worked her way through academia. Just a fascinating character in her own right, a proudly feminist, Black lesbian. She was her partner was a white woman. She had from a previous marriage 2 children, so she was a mother also to a black son and a black daughter. And I think this whole confluence of who she was and who she was never afraid of being, I think informs her writing in really interesting ways. So this is just a really well curated selection of her writing across a career, and she died tragically young of cancer, born in 1934, and it dies in the 70s, I think. 1980. I beg your pardon. 1 second. So I beg your pardon, she dies in 1992. I'm very sorry. Born in 34 and dies in 1992. And it's a really well curated collection of some of her writing. I want to be very, very careful. She's so fantastically clear and just really clear-sighted about what it is that she wants to say about her own identity and her authenticity and her ability to say what she wants. She's really very strong on anger as a response to things that happen and the way black people are treated in America. Not anger in an out-of-controlled way, in a way that is not channeled and is just exploding and pointing at, but anger as a driving force. When something like this happens, when this is institutionalized, the correct response is anger, and channeling that anger and finding ways to express your feelings about things using rage and anger as a righteous fuel for what it is that you have to say and for change making is an absolutely acceptable and appropriate response. She's really, really good on that. So that the terrible trope of the angry black woman is that the way women's voices have been dismissed for decades is reclaimed and owned here, saying, yeah, I'm angry. Don't I have the right to be angry? But is it my responsibility to channel that anger for change making and understanding and explaining? On the other hand, she's also absolutely clear on how it's not her responsibility to explain racism to white people. This edition is introduced by, as an introduction by Renée Lodge, who wrote a book a couple of years ago saying, I'm no longer talking to white people about race, clearly informed by Audre Lorde's writing, and hence that she's writing things. So I love that. I read that book. I thought it was a really fine piece of work. And I love seeing her introduction here, which is great, and taught me about Audre Lorde before then going on and reading her own writing. Some of these, I'm not going to do a great job in explaining this, but I really, really recommend you read it because it's urgent. It is so current. The idea that these essays are being written for academic journals or in talks given in the 70s and 80s in America, and they could just as easily be read today, and they are meaningful and powerful today. Not that we haven't heard them or learned the lessons from them, but the same. It's not that life was a waste because nothing has changed. No, there is still more work to be done. The work, any work that has been done, comes because there were people who were able to speak with this level of clarity and forthrightness and righteousness. But it doesn't mean that everything's okay now. And so that's what I mean when there's an urgency here which still remains and still requires us to read this and understand this and be angry and find ways to channel that anger for positivity, but not to dismiss this, this is an artifact from the past and nothing ever happened. I really was blown away by this and amazed that I think this came out by Silver Press a couple of years ago, this collection, and I don't think it's ever been published, these writings have ever been published before in the UK. So really interesting. There's an interview with Adrienne Rich, who I don't know much about, forms part of this, and she's blurb on the back, and a mention of bell hooks, who I don't know almost anything about, and I need to explore further. I know that Natasha Brown in the Novella Assembly, which I was down on, also refers to bell hooks, and she's referenced here and blurbs the back, and so I really want to explore that further. But just, if for titles alone, Audre Lorde is now one of my number one essays. Your Silence Will Not Protect You is a great title. There's an essay here which is just absolutely stupendous, called The Master's Tools Will Never Dismantle the Master's House. The Master's tools will never dismantle the Master's house. And that's just thinking about that, what it is, what you need to do to make change, and whether you can do it from within. As some people will say, yeah, no, you can't be on the outside looking in, or you'll never be able to make change. But the idea that if you're on the inside, using the Master's tools will never dismantle the Master's house, I think is a powerful statement in its own right, and the essay that comes after it is terrific. So I really rate this. There's some poetry at the back as well, which I was less... I struggle with poetry, so that the last, I think, quarter of this collection is some poems, and I read through them, but I didn't absorb them, and I didn't, and they don't live with me the way the essays did. But that's a me problem, not an Audre Lorde problem. If you may well find that the essays also complement the poetry, also complements what you're getting from the essays. But really, my highest recommendation for Your Silence Will Not Protect You by Audre Lorde. Great, and yes, I bought this in the summer. It's been sitting on thing. I think Nonfiction November really helped me get to that. Then after that, I read a graphic novel, because that's what I do. Giant Days Volume 3, and I've been going through these at a leisurely pace, and they're just a joy. Giant Days by John Allison, and this is drawn by... I should tell you, because I think it hasn't been the same artist all the way through. This was illustrated by Max Sarin, colours by Whitney Kogar, letters by Jim Campbell, cover by Lissa Treyman. But John Allison is the creator and writer of this. This is ongoing. This was a comic book series. This is 4 or 5 issues from within the comic book series, which I think has now completed its run, and there may be 10 or 12 of these individuals, and this is the 3rd one, and I'm going to pick them all up slowly but surely. I think I've just ordered another 2, because they're just super fun. This is a group of students in their first year at university in the UK, somewhere unnamed university town, and each one of them has identifiable characteristics. There's a goth, and there's a dippy girl who was homeschooled, and then there's a serious smoker who's in a sort of odd relationship with a very intense. She's very intense, he's also a little bit intense, but they're funny. The stories are funny, the characters are sweet, they're kind to each other, the stories are a little crazy, and they're great. And I think the last things we saw was, remember those outsized things? They're also by John Allison, Bad Machinery. I think this is stronger writing. I like those, and I picked up a couple more of those as well. But this is great, and I'm going to stick with this whole series. So this is volume 3 of Giant Days. I don't think it has a subtitle. Really, the artwork is sort of cartoony, and there's a little bit of romance, but it's mainly other kinds of shenanigans. Not for children, all those come with this. There's sex happens in this, and there's just some weird, fun stuff, and about being a student. There's a point at which the person doesn't sleep at all because she's studying for a test, and then drifts off into this weird underworld of people who are awake all night and sleep during the day, and that's fairly recognisable from my university days. Anyway, Giant Days Volume 3, and then I started this during Nonfiction November. Well, I haven't finished it yet, and that's The Odyssey by Daniel Mendelsohn. I read my first Daniel Mendelsohn this year, 3 Rings. This is my second. I've ordered The Lost, which is his Holocaust and nonfiction looking back and tracing family that died in the Holocaust. So I'm only 30 pages into this. The story of Mendelsohn, who is a classics professor. His father, in his 80s, comes and attends one of his lectures about the Homer's Odyssey, and they decide at the end of this year of the father sitting in his son's lectures, they will take a cruise together around the Mediterranean islands and trace the route that Odysseus took, making his way home. And so far, so enjoyable. Just everything, every sentence that Mendelssohn crafts is a joy, and this is sort of peak nonfiction for me. So this will be the last book for Nonfiction November. It doesn't mean I'm not going to read any more nonfiction. I've got a couple left I didn't get to. I want to get, I haven't bought yet, but I'm going to purchase the Patrick Radden Keefe's book about the Empire of Pain, about the Sackler dynasty. I've been ordering books like crazy already, because going to New York at the end of the month, spending the weekend, spending New Year's in Connecticut with our friends there, and I've already started sending books to their home in Connecticut, and then hopefully London in pandemic willing in January. So I've been ordering stuff there and sending it to my mum's already. So on a book buying frenzy, I still have plenty of books in my TBR, so no reason to buy new books, but that's what I do. Hope you're having a great time. Happy Chanukah. Have a great weekend. God bless. Bye.